Let's talk about, though, issues with the BBC, because I will fight tooth and nail that if we're going to have a license fee, TV license fee, that I have to pay under pain of getting a fine, and if I don't pay that fine, imprisonment, then I expect that BBC to be politically neutral. And yet, 2 nights ago on Newsnight, this is what the presenter Emily Maitlis said as she opened the show.
Dominic Cummings broke the rules. The country can see that, and it's shocked the government cannot. The longer ministers and Prime Minister tell us he worked within them, the more angry the response to this scandal is likely to be. He was the man, remember, who always got the public mood, who tagged the lazy label of elite on those who disagreed. He should understand that public mood now, one of fury, contempt and anguish. He made those who struggle to keep to the rules feel like fools and has allowed many more to assume they can now flout them. The Prime Minister knows all this, but despite the resignation of one minister, growing unease from his backbenchers, a dramatic early warning from the polls and a deep national disquiet, Boris Johnson has chosen to ignore it. Tonight we consider what this blind loyalty tells us about the workings of Number 10.
Well, the BBC has said that Emily Maitlis did breach BBC impartiality rules with that monologue, but she's being defended by all and sundry on the Ramon side, surprise, surprise, Brendan, for what she had to say. Did she breach the rules?
She completely and utterly breached the rules. I think it's one of the worst breaching of the rules of recent times. This was an expression of political opinion. And the reason the BBC is different to other broadcasters, the reason it's different to you, for example, Julia, everyone wants to hear your opinion. That's partly why we tune into your show. The BBC is different because it is the national broadcaster. It has strict impartiality rules. It's funded by us on pain of going to prison if you don't pay your TV license. So we expect it to be impartial. We expect it to be neutral. And what Emily Maitlis did was express a political opinion about Boris Johnson, about the government, about blind loyalty, about them failing to listen to the people. Now, there are loads of people out there who are saying this is just fact. But actually, it's opinion, and other people disagree. And we don't tune in to the BBC to be told what we ought to think by members of the chattering classes. That's not what the BBC should be there for.
Well, when she was talking about, the country and the opinion. Now, look, I happen to agree, and a lot of my listeners are very cross with me for the fact that I think that Dominic Cummings did do something wrong. He broke the rules, and I think he should resign as a matter of just a personal integrity. But yeah, that's my personal opinion. I'm not pretending that I speak for the entire nation. She pretended as if she was speaking for the entire nation, because she would have been speaking for her entire Ramona chummery at the BBC and no doubt the chattering classes where she lives. This morning we spoke to Labour MP Ben Bradshaw. He's a former culture secretary, and he said if there was any suggestion that Emily Maitlis had been reprimanded for telling the truth, as he called it, as a result of a telephone call from Number 10, that would be very serious indeed. He kept telling me again and again after he played in that audio that she said nothing wrong, that she was telling the truth, and she should not be reprimanded for it. What do you make of that?
I completely disagree with Ben Bradshaw, not for the first time. I actually think this is a really important line to hold. And I actually think it's really important that the BBC reprimanded Emily Maitlis, because people say the BBC is special. There's a kind of lefty version of British exceptionalism, which says that the NHS is the best thing on earth and the BBC is wonderful. Now, the BBC is, in many ways, very good. And the reason it's good is because it does float slightly above other broadcasters. It does have a special role to play in our society. It is supposed to be impartial. It is supposed to be neutral. So the things that these people ought to value about the BBC, they are now trashing those things by egging it on to become this kind of Ramona version of Fox News, where you switch it on and you're constantly told what's the right way to think and what's the wrong way to think. The BBC is losing the plot, I think. And this isn't the first time Emily Maitlis has been called out. She was also reprimanded for her incredible mistreatment of Rod Liddle when he appeared on a couple of years ago on Newsnight. I think it's right to hold these BBC journalists to account. It's right to tell them that they have a particular role to play. And if Emily Maitlis wants to express her opinions, she should get a Guardian column. She shouldn't be on doing it on
Well,
Newsnight.
This is it, isn't it? She's now being made out to be a martyr. Now, I have to say, I'm going to stress here, I know Emily Maitlis, at various, yes, media elite board of establishment parties. I really like her. I think she's actually a very, very good, very intelligent journalist. But if you want to do that sort of editorialising, as you say, go and get yourself yourself a column somewhere, go and work at any other organisation, but you don't get to work at the BBC. And you know that when you sign your contract. It's part of your contract at the BBC. Should she be reprimanded? There's a talk that she wasn't on air last night, was due to be. We're told that she wasn't taken off air. The suggestion, I think, seems to be, and I've got no evidence for this, that she perhaps may have been asked to apologise or retract, but she refused to do so. That is one of the suggestions. But should she have been reprimanded?
I think so, yes. I think it's for the BBC to decide for itself how to treat journalists who break the impartiality code. I mean, it has an actual code. Lots of workplaces do, but the BBC's one is particularly important. There are things that if I did in my workplace, I would be reprimanded for doing them, and same for you, same for everyone who has a job. So I think probably some action needed to be taken. I don't think it needs to be severe. I think it can just be a telling off. I don't want anyone to be particularly punished. I don't want Emily Maitlis to lose her job. I don't want anything like that. But the BBC does have rules. The BBC does have a code. I'm worried. Lots of people, I think, out there are worried that the BBC is becoming biased. They think it became the Brexit bashing corporation for a few years. They now think it's really got it in for Boris Johnson. And they think Newsnight has become Viewsnight. And if people continue thinking this, and if the BBC continues giving evidence for this view, then the BBC will suffer in the long term. So it needs to get its house in order, I think.
OK. Brendan, thank you very much indeed. This is Brendan O'Neill, editor of Spiked Online, Health Minister and Labour MP, joins us now. Good morning to you.
Hello, Julia.
Lovely to speak to you, Ben Bradshaw. This test and trace plan, we will get onto politics, but in terms of most people listening right now are caring about getting out of lockdown. They want to get back to work, they want the kids to go back to school, they want to get back to the pub, frankly. Maybe get a chance to go on holiday this summer when the kids break up from the schools they're not attending. Do you think that the test and trace system that the government has set up, from what you know about it so far, the app isn't really in place yet? Dido Harding, the head of ex-boss of Talk in charge, do you think that is going to be the answer? And do you think that public spiritedness of people will be enough and not making it mandatory?
It's a big part of the answer, Julia, and it should have happened quite a long time ago. My worry is it's not ready. And I spoke to the people on the ground in my own patch in Devon only on Tuesday, who said that they'd been told they didn't have to have their local plans in place. And don't forget, it's going to be the local public health people, the local government officers who are actually doing this tracing. They've been told they don't have to have their plan in place until the end of June. So there's a mismatch between what ministers are saying yesterday, that it's starting today, and what the Prime Minister said a week ago to Keir Starmer at Prime Minister's Questions, that we'd have a world-beating system operational by Monday. There's a mismatch between what they're saying and what I'm told the reality is on the ground.
And we've always known that the local aspect of this is going to be very, very crucial.
It's going to be absolutely crucial because as well as the app, which, as you say, is not apparently ready and won't be for some time, which originally was supposed to be an essential part of this, as well as the app, you actually need the human beings on the ground. And we have these people. They work in local public health departments. They're used to contact tracing. It's what they do all the time with other diseases. They have been willing to do this work, but they're still not being told, for example, how they're going to be doing it. They're still not being told who is going to do the enforcing, if there's going to be any enforcing. And I worry that once again, we've got a government and ministers who are making promises that they're not going to be able to deliver. And that worries me because it's been a trait of the government's handling of this crisis all the way along.
Obviously, there are lots of concerns from those who've been critical of Dominic Cummings that the message that you do your civic duty. So it may well not be best for you and your family to self-isolate. If you haven't got any symptoms, you want to go to work, furlough schemes have ended and the like, and people want to put food on the table, that they feel that the best thing for them is not to self-isolate. If the Prime Minister is still backing his senior advisor, Dominic Cummings, who did what was best for his family in breach of the rules, I'm sorry, I don't accept there is any question mark whether he breached the rules or not from my reading of the laws and the guidance at the time. Do you think that civic duty message is undermined? Do you think people will say, well, if the Prime Minister's advisor doesn't have to obey the rules, why do I?
Yes, I think it is fatally undermined. And we're already hearing, aren't we, from the police today that they basically stopped enforcing the social distancing rules because they think it's absolutely impossible in the light of the Prime Minister's...
Well, no, they were already going to stop enforcing them. They've already announced that before Dominic Cummings.
Well, they've stopped even giving people advice, apparently, from the reports I'm reading this morning, which is slightly less than enforcing them. I think there's another problem here, Julia, isn't there? That if you're told to self-isolate for 14 days, and as you point out, you have no income, what are you supposed to do? And I think the government needs to be absolutely clear that there will be support for those people who are forced to give up their income and may have nothing to live on for 14 days, even if they don't have symptoms, and even if they test negative. And there are a number of questions, I think, about this system, and I just worry that the government once again has launched it in a flurry of publicity to try to move the headlines on, as it were, and it's not actually ready yet.
Yeah, I mean that will be the concern, won't it? And in terms of also the 3-week review of the lockdown, that's coming today. Every 3 weeks we have that review. There's a possibility of the change to the 2 metre rule, bring it down to 1 metre. A possibility that we could see pubs or restaurants reopening soon, perhaps more business being able to reopen soon if we did have that 2 metre rule down to 1 metre. Would you support that? Would it be the Labour position to support that? Many other countries coming out of lockdown and throughout this entire pandemic have only had the 1 metre rule.
I think anything that is supported by the science, we would support, and we have done all along. As Keir Starmer's made clear, we will support the government when they're getting things right, but we will also ask the important questions when we think they're getting things wrong. I think there are a number of questions of the government strategy going ahead. You highlighted in your introduction the desire of British people to go on holiday abroad this summer. I cannot understand, and apparently quite a lot of Conservative MPs can't understand, why we are introducing a 14-day quarantine now at this stage of the pandemic, just when the whole of the rest of Europe are lifting their quarantines and opening up. That will leave the British people the only people in Europe not allowed to go on a summer holiday this year. Again, no basis in science, and I hope very much and expect now, I think the government will have to abandon that scheme. It'll be the latest of the government's botched initiatives that will unravel before our eyes.
Okay, I also want to ask you, as someone who's not only a former health minister but also the former culture secretary and indeed someone who used to work at the BBC, what did you make of Emily Maitlis, the Newsnight presenter, breaching in BBC impartiality rules with an opening monologue on Newsnight attacking Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson's handling of the fair?
Well, I didn't see Emily Maitlis's.
You're on social media, Ben. You've seen it. Don't be silly.
Yes, but I don't. But I don't comment on things.
So, have you seen it or not?
Properly. No, I haven't.
You've not seen any social media on it at all?
No, yeah, Julia.
I can read out to you what she said. You only have to comment on the words. She said, Dominic Cummings broke the rules. The country can see that. And it shocked the government cannot. He was the man, remember, who always got the public mood. He tagged the lazy label of elite on those who disagreed. He should understand that public mood now, one of fury, contempt and anguish. That's what she said. Is a presenter on the BBC allowed to say that?
Well, you just said he broke the rules, didn't you? And I think
I'm allowed to give my opinion. No. People listening to talk radio can listen to talk radio. They can buy the products that are out in the adverts, but they're not required by law under the threat of a fine or imprisonment that if they don't buy a TV license which funds the BBC, in order to have their BBC to exist. The BBC is a supposedly neutral, independent national broadcaster funded by tax to all intents and purposes. And the presenters on the BBC, as you know, as someone who used to work there, are governed by guidelines which say quite specifically no BBC presenter, certainly not in the realms of news or politics, is allowed to give a political opinion. She gave a political opinion. That's not allowed, is it?
Well, as I said, Julia, I haven't seen the interview. It seems from what you've just read out to me that she, like you, was simply telling the truth, and the vast majority of the public believe that Dominic Cummings broke the rules, and the Prime Minister has shown his extreme weakness by not sacking him.
Okay, we've actually got a clip of Emily Maitlis right now. Let's listen to what she had to say in her own words, then you can make a final judgment.
Good evening. Dominic Cummings broke the rules. The country can see that, and it shocked the government cannot. The longer ministers and Prime Minister tell us he worked within them, the more angry the response to this scandal is likely to be. He was the man, remember, who always got the public mood, who tagged the lazy label of elite on those who disagreed. He should understand that public mood now, one of fury, contempt and anguish. He made those who struggle to keep to the rules feel like fools and has allowed many more to assume they can now flout them. The Prime Minister knows all this, but despite the resignation of one minister, growing unease from his backbenchers, a dramatic early warning from the polls and a deep national disquiet, Boris Johnson has chosen to ignore it. Tonight we consider what this blind loyalty tells us about the workings of Number 10.
Now, there's no doubt at all, you've heard that, Ben Bradshaw, that's editorialising. The BBC is not allowed to do that, are they?
Well, you might call it editorialising. I didn't hear any word in that was not true. What in that was untrue?
No, you didn't hear any word in that with which you disagreed. Now, I actually agree with an awful lot of her criticism, but that is not the opinion of the entire country. She does not get to speak for the entire country.
Well, my impression of that, Julia, you asked for my impression, was that what she said was completely truthful. The BBC has a duty to tell the truth. She told the truth.
Okay, to tell the truth. So when she talks about he tagged the lazy label of elite, the country, he broke the rules. It shocked the country can see that, and it shocked the government cannot. How does she know the country is shocked that the government cannot? She is implying basically that every single one of her Ramona chums at the BBC all agree with her. Look, I can tell you from my Twitter feed that people who are angry with me that I think that Dominic Cummings should go, that an awful lot of the country don't think that and don't want him to go and aren't criticising the government on this. So she doesn't speak for the whole nation. If you work for the BBC as a former reporter and as a former culture secretary, you will know this more than anyone. You are bound by very strict charter rules which say you may not give your opinion. Now, whether or not all your mates think it's true or not doesn't matter. You're not allowed to give your opinion. Isn't it time the BBC started expecting its presenters to stick by the BBC Charter?
Well, the central words that you just played to me, and as I say, Julia, I didn't see the whole of that programme. I never watched Newsnight.
No one does. No one watches Newsnight apart from the clips they see on social media.
Emily Maitlis stating that Dominic Cummings broke the rule and the public was shocked. I don't think that's a surprise, because that is what you have said. It's what all of the opinion polls published in the last few days say. It's what every MP has been told in absolute mountains of emails and letters we've received from outraged constituents about Dominic Cummings. And I would be very concerned if the BBC has reprimanded one of their star presenters because of bullying from Number 10. Now, that is something that I think would be much more concerning than a BBC presenter.
Bullying from Number 10. The BBC themselves ruled that she had breached BBC impartiality rules.
Yes, but I wonder whether that followed a call from Number 10.
You think the BBC does what Number 10 wants? Since when?
There's a long tradition under this government and under this Prime Minister of calls from Number 10, as you well know.
I mean, they're entitled to make a call if there's been a profound breach of the BBC Charter, given that the taxpayer pays for the BBC.
The governments can call programmes all they like, but it's the job of the BBC to uphold its integrity and its independence from the government. And I think if there was any suggestion that Emily Maitlis had been reprimanded for telling the truth as a result of a telephone call from Number 10, that would be very serious indeed.
OK, thank you very much, Ben Bradshaw. Former Health Minister, he's a Labour MP, former Culture Secretary as well. Someone who used to work at the BBC.